Welcome to Kev's Travel Stories. Each week I'll be bringing you a story from the weird and wonderful world of travel, a world that can change the way you see life and love and even the way we find meaning. Places that are iconic and sometimes surprising and even terrifying. So sit back and enjoy while we go on a magical mystery tour together. Welcome to On the Road with Kev, and this is a very precious podcast, a very precious episode, because I'm in Hiroshima. I'm actually sitting in Hiroshima as I record this live, and I've just visited the site of the first use of an atomic weapon on a largely civilian population, and it has been one of those experiences where travel catapults you into a sphere of human experience which is very difficult to put into words. I had this experience in the killing fields, in Auschwitz, in the battlefields of Verdun, where you get a real sense of the chill of history. I also got it when I went to the Zeppelin field, where the remains of the great stadium where Adolf Hitler gave his speeches, and you could almost feel again channeling that sense of a presence. And I think it's very interesting that the visit to Hiroshima is directly linked to that visit to Hitler and his call to arms to the great mass of German soldiers and civilians gathered there to give him adoration. And in a world where we see ourselves going back to difficult and dangerous times, I think it is even more important to go and look at what is the end result when men and women of bad faith who have designs on their own power take power and then use that power. And in one sense, Hiroshima is a climax. Anybody who saw the Oppenheimer movie will really see that the impetus to create the atomic bomb was really to try to get there before Hitler did, because he would certainly have used it. And then they had the bomb. The war in Europe had ended, but the war in Asia was going on. And the Japanese were reckless in their way of holding on and making sure that they would not bend the knee to the West. And it was this that then prompted the Americans to drop the first atom bomb on the little boy, as it was very ironically called, on the population. And today, just a few hours ago, I stood under the very spot where that bomb went off. I looked up and the sun had come out, and it really even sends shivers up my spine now, just to get the sense that this wasn't the Oppenheimer movie, this wasn't those war black and white pictures of the bomb going off. I was there, and you could really feel that sense of awfulness that really warns us that this could happen again, and it will only happen once, because if this is repeated, there will be no Homo sapiens, there will be no civilization, there will be no more travel, there will be no more top travel destinations, there will be nothing but absolute apocalypse, literally. Standing there and looking at the place where the girls' school had been, just to my right, where 300 young girls going about their business were literally evaporated. Such was the heat from the first blast of that atomic bomb, which was very small compared to the weapons that would be unleashed today. Even that just vaporized up to 70,000 people. You can see the dome, which is a terrifying building. The dome was a conference center. It was built very strongly in the, I think, 20s. And it was directly underneath where the atom bomb exploded when it was dropped. And it exploded at 600 meters above ground for maximum effect. And there we had it. The building survived as a skeleton. Everybody inside was vaporized. And it's this sense when you stand there and you look at the building and you look at the river and the bridges and you hear the testament of those that survived and those eyewitnesses, that it really, I can't put it into words. I'm trying to put it into words, but it is so important to go and stand and witness what we do to each other and what we will possibly do again. Please God, we don't. But it's an incredible experience. And I was deeply moved because I suddenly realized as I was walking through the Peace Park, this beautiful park that was created right in Ground Zero. The original Ground Zero is, of course, Hiroshima, where the bomb went off. And in an instant, 70,000 souls were removed from this planet, and every atom of their bodies was disintegrated. No trace, maybe a shadow on the ground, of those shadows left by the people that were evaporated in the blast, which had the power of a sun actually exploding a few hundred meters above them. And it came to me as I walked through the park that my father had been in the Second World War, and he'd been in Burma, he'd been in Asia, he'd been quite near all of these wars, and he'd served there in order to try to protect our democracy. And it became very poignant for me, and it became quite tearful to suddenly realize that the circle sort of is complete. This pilgrimage, this travel destination of Hiroshima had become so powerful for me, particularly after seeing the Oppenheimer movie and then recalling my own days growing up in London. And I grew up just after the Cuban Missile Crisis. I was 11 and becoming conscious of the world. And I can remember one day we used to get leaflets through the door saying, this is what you do if there's a nuclear attack, because of the Cold War, and Russia and the US and the UK came within seconds sometimes of having a full nuclear exchange. And I can remember reading the material, where we should lie and how we should get under the desk in our schools. Much good that would have done. And one day the siren went off and the sirens wailed across London, and I remember my spine turning to water, and I was thinking, my God, it's going to go. We're doomed. This is an 11-year-old. And there was this general feeling of unease if you were brought up in that generation. We were spared that day, but the people of Hiroshima were not spared, and most of them were civilians. And just to stand underneath and just reimagine the actuality of the Enola Gray stratofortress going across, and this little black object which people saw falling out of the sky, and at 600 meters it detonated and melted everything in a circle of a kilometer, and anybody in that was vaporized. And just to see the remains and to hear the stories and to stand there with my own 2 feet, I think that is such an incredible, powerful experience. And I would really encourage you, if you ever get the chance, to go to places like Auschwitz, like Verdun, like the killing fields, and maybe the ultimate turning point for humanity is Hiroshima, because we now realize that there was no going back. We diced with the devil, we'd opened Pandora's box, and this was something that could not be put back in, and it's still out there, that threat. So it's with a real sense of honor and dread and wonder that I send you this podcast. I don't think I've ever felt anything quite so powerfully before, and I just wanted to share that with you and encourage you to come and visit if you can, because the great tragedy of history is if we don't learn from it, we will repeat it. And I would hate for us to repeat what happened at Hiroshima, because it would be so much worse. So I'm signing off from Hiroshima, and I will send another reflection on this of a city that actually came back from the ashes. So it's not all doom and gloom. They came back from the ashes, and it is now a vibrant and absolutely fantastic city. More from that. Till the next time, Kevin in Hiroshima signing off.